Tripod, the official Trinity University Press podcast, invites authors, journalists, community leaders, and other guests to engage in exploratory, informative discussions on the subject of people, places, and the planet.
I'm Lily Brennan, and welcome to the first ever episode of Tripod, the official podcast of the Trinity University Press. Joining me today to help introduce Tripod, the press, and myself is Tom Payton, the director and publisher of the Trinity University Press and Tripod's executive producer. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Lily. It's exciting to see us in the early days of Tripod and be a part of helping to get this off the ground. So in advance, thanks to you for all of your hard work as we launch Tripod.
Yeah, it's been fun so far. But I wanted to talk a bit about TU Press and our backgrounds. We're going to take it back before we get started on discussing the new and exciting things with Tripod. But I feel like a good place to start will probably be, how did you get into book publishing and how did you come here?
Great. Yeah, I'll be brief because certainly, like our books, it's not about me, it's not about us, it's about the books, the authors, and most importantly, the mission-driven work we're trying to do. But I appreciate you asking. I've been in the book industry for 34 years, and I don't know where it's gone. It's gone fast. It all seems like yesterday. My background is actually in architecture and urban planning, and that's to this day really my true love. And I had an odd moment after graduate school where I was thinking about returning to architecture and planning on going back and getting another master's in architecture, and had an opportunity to work in the book business, and I just fell in love with it. And then right after that, I had an opportunity to work specifically with the American Institute of Architects and its AIA Press, which it had then, which was a phenomenal architectural publisher, and it kind of meshed the best of both worlds for me. And long story short, here I am today. Over the years, I think certainly worn a lot of hats, done a little bit, if not a lot of everything. Love all of it, but I have to say at my core, between a little bit of retail work and then my early days in publishing, my real passion is on the marketing and sales side, which I like to think I know inside out, but I'm always surprised by what I don't know or what's new and changing in the landscape. But along the way, certainly a lot of editorial work, acquisitions work, brand development work, all those other things you can do with a book beyond the book itself, like translating into foreign language, turning it into a movie or TV show, those kinds of things.
So across all those different transitions and shifts from architecture and into publishing and then going deep into publishing, what eventually got you to San Antonio?
I've got to hang that on one person, and it's part of the Trinity story, which I'll touch on. But long story short, dear friend and former colleague from the 90s, Barbara Rass, was tapped to be the inaugural director of a kind of a relaunched, re-envisioned Trinity University Press back in 2003. And early in her time in San Antonio, East Coast gal by way of California, I think, like myself, never imagined they'd probably be living and working in Texas. She was tapped for that position and settled in here to restart a publishing program at Trinity University, and made some key decisions about it along with the editorial board, specifically as to it having association with quality work, but being trade-focused for a general audience, meaning not an academic audience per se. And once all of that framework was set, one of the first calls she made was to me to kind of help advise, be a colleague at a distance, and in particular help focus on some of the sales and marketing. So from the early days, as early as 2004, I was consulting for Trinity University Press, and at some point they tried to bend my ear about joining the team, and finally by 2010 they convinced me to do that. So I actually hit the ground and joined the team in 2010 and became the director publisher in 2016. It's gone fast.
Yeah, I mean, I know I guess you just touched on like the general framework of the Trinity University Press story, but I don't know if you want to go back and dive into how that all started.
Sure. Yeah, there's a couple benchmark things that are unique to Trinity University Press and really define us. We're in a world of university presses here in North America, I think. Don't hold me to the number. I think it's something like 180. They, generally speaking, publish a good bit of, if not predominantly, or maybe half and half, academic work and what we call general trade, which is just books for wide general readership. Trinity University Press is unique among them in that our program is entirely general trade focused, all for general readers, which has kind of created some really interesting opportunities for the press. The press itself technically dates to 1961. Been around quite a while. It built and made quite a contribution, especially publishing around Texas, a little bit around Mexico, and in some niche areas like philosophy and mathematics, and over those early decades. Press took a hiatus in the 90s, kind of rethink things, and reemerged in the early 2000s, as I mentioned, with new parameters. The university wanted the press to be more bold and more ambitious, to really reflect some of the institutional goals Trinity had for a broader national and international recognition for the university, and help with that branding exercise, if you will, and to kind of explore some different areas of editorial focus from what the previous iteration of Trinity University Press had done. So in hiring Barbara Rass, what came with her was her national reputation in environmental and nature publishing. And so from the start, that was a really primary focus in all of the early years. And she brought some stellar authors with her and to the table, National Book Award-winning authors, New York Times best-selling authors, and those were exciting days. But the program nevertheless remained small-ish, around 7 or 8 books a year. And by 2010, in my joining the team, there was a desire strategically to accomplish a few things. First, to enter the then re-emerged world of ebooks and have a true plan for a digital publishing program. Second, to realize that in the world we live in today, 7-8 books a year is pretty small, and it's hard to have the impact and the kind of muscle in a commercial sense that you want to have. So the goal was to grow the press, but grow the press in smart ways. And so beginning by 2011-12, we started growing pretty ambitiously. And today the program's for 18 to 24, let's say, books per year. So we've grown about 300% over that period of time, all internally through our hard work and sweat, and are very proud of where the program is today. And to clarify for readers, some people are thrown by the terms director, publisher. They're interchangeable. Director is a title that's used in the academic world. Publisher is the word that's used in the publishing world. So it's just kind of one in the same.
Yeah, I guess I didn't know they were interchangeable. Yeah. But I guess, as you're saying, it's grown like 300%. I mean, we have over 200 titles.
Yeah, actually more than that. And when you look at editions, whether it's in paperback and hardback in the case of print, or ebook, and then almost all of our books are simultaneously published in ebook now, and then shortly we'll be moving ambitiously into audiobooks as well. But I think across all the books there's well over 650 editions available.
Wow. I mean, with all that exponential growth, I know you were saying even from the start, like, it's always kind of remained a smaller publisher. How has that growth changed TU Press's mission?
Well, first, just in terms of scale, I will say that there's these kind of ill-defined but nevertheless kind of recognized benchmarks in terms of publishing business models, and you can accomplish different things at different sizes and scopes, and there's also unique challenges. In my opinion, kind of no more than 24, 25 books a year is where we want to be and stay. So while we've grown, we're not looking to grow further in terms of scale measured that way. Beyond that, you really become a different kind of publishing company and face a number of additional challenges that I don't really think are advantageous for us. So we're going to kind of remain at that scale. But the other way to look at that is editorially. Publishers maintain imprints. Imprints are really a reflection of an area of editorial focus in a commercial sense. For university presses, which are all nonprofit, mission-driven organizations, an imprint also reflects a mission-driven area of commitment. So a publisher may launch an imprint under its big umbrella, such as Random House has photo guides, and we know photo guides are all travel books. University presses play with imprints in different ways. We've adopted them pretty robustly and creatively, and we maintain several imprints, and that reflects really what's evolved in the last 10 years, is defining the press in this way. are most known for, like I said, originally a lot of books on environment and nature, but we've reframed that away from nature writing per se. The imprint name is Terra Firma Books, and we define that as all books about humans and people and their relationships to their physical environments. A lot of times trying to make sure the physical environment part of that is what's predominant in that discussion rather than the human themselves. But that gives us scope to cover everything from true wilderness, nature and outdoors, all the way through to architecture, urbanism, and the built environment. All physical environments, including the animal kingdom, how humans interact with that. So that's Terra Firma Books. Along the way, we've always maintained a commitment to our backyard. We're in Texas. We're very interested in Texas. It's home. And we've published on and off in that way. But by 2014, we actually formalized that and now publish under the banner of the imprint name Maverick Books. In particular, that's evolving again right now, and we're actually narrowing that. Whereas we're interested in all of Texas, we're more publicly saying that we're really interested in our backyard, our home, which is South Central Texas, San Antonio, the Rio Grande Valley, and the border. All areas that are woefully underpublished, voices that need to be heard, and where we all have a lot of good work to do. And then the last major imprint we have is a fairly new venture for us called Tinta Books. We launched that just recently, a few years ago, and we are the first publisher in America to have an imprint truly dedicated in this way. And we define that, again, a pretty broad sweep, but we define that all as books about Mexican and Mexican-American history, culture, and current affairs. And so with that, we touch on foodways, food culture, history, of course, interested in architecture, material culture, art, music, as well as some kind of politics and traditional history. And that is, of course, just emerging, and we're doing a number of those projects, we're very proud to say, in partnership with publishers in Mexico.
Coming into TU Press, learning how many different dedicated branches we have to these individual, not necessarily niche, but really underexplored areas in publishing. Tinta Books is, first of its kind of for us. But going into that, you've also touched on place and how critical that is to what we do. Going into place, how have these books set up events and opportunities for us to interact with the San Antonio area, the larger Texas area? I know I've had the privilege of witnessing some great conversations between some of our authors like Carrie Clack and some other San Antonio natives. What do you think that really brings to this area, and how does that, tie us to our location?
Sure. I place is an interesting word. It means different things to different people. It means confusion to a lot of people. What does it mean? It means very specific, tangible thoughts come to mind for other people. Academically and culturally, it's a word that's thrown around a lot. And I think it's fun to embrace the question of what does that mean? We, of course, have framed a lot of our interests for a while now and really honed, and specifically with this, under Tripod in particular, as being interested in people, place, planet. Again, it's a construct that's out there, not completely original, but the question is, what does it mean? And I think that the times are overripe for a real recognition about how place defines us, is tethered to our beings, our existence, our sense of identity, our sense of memory, the way in which those become our defined kind of personal values, the way we live our lives, and in the rush of our daily life. And in the kind of a lifetime trajectory of a world where everybody's moving around and not really abandoning place, but forgetting place or taking their eye off of place, place becomes more loaded and interesting than ever. And so, we're proud that we make our own contribution to that discussion and the different directions in which it can go, whether it's certainly a larger conceptual, even philosophical discussion about place, whether it's kind of a cultural heritage kind of framework about the things, tangible ways we think of defining place, such as landmark or architectural style or type of food or music, those kinds of cultural markers. And then all the way down to the very individuality of a specific place, like where did I grow up, regionally, or the street or the home, and how does that really define me as a person? I love, years and years ago, decades ago, there was a book that I became really curious about. It's kind of straightforward, but it's not. It's something that no one had ever kind of made me think that way before. I remember the title of the book, and it was called Love, Loss, and What I Wore. And it was mainly written or read by women. But I love the stepping back just a little, I love the little construct because it reminded, or kind of in a very creative way, shine a light on the fact that so many memories of their life as they get older and look back, they can remember exactly what they were wearing. And that, that transfers to other discussions I've had with friends where they remember a particular moment, a happy moment, a sad moment, a breakup, an acceptance to college or whatever, and they can remember like the music of that moment. And I think that goes for place as well, and we don't give all of those kinds of personal, psychological kind of frameworks enough time to kind of think how they're tethered to these tangible memories. And I think place is just a centerpiece in that. And it's something we should really not just think about, but really kind of embrace and understand. And of course, rediscover old ways and learn new ways to celebrate.
Doing Tripod definitely has opened my mind to how place is so ingrained in our lives, but also just working for TU Press in general and getting to speak to authors who have spent so much time going into depth on either whether they live in San Antonio or they visited a particular location, and just how much that changed them, and they changed it in that way by contributing to our general knowledge of this place where we can all now appreciate it. And I came to San Antonio from Chicago, and I still have people asking me how it compares, how it contrasts, and it's just, I feel as though my first thought is always the commuting, the traffic, how I'm actually exploring this place is very different, but I continue to enjoy it even more and more, learning more about place-based writing.
Yeah, let's actually pause on that and step back a little bit, because you've done such great work getting us up and running with Tripod as producer, and but tell everyone a little bit more about you and how Chicago to San Antonio, and I think you're a communications major. How did you settle in on that, and where do you see it taking you?
Well, yeah, I'm born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, and I actually attended Culver Military Academy in Indiana for high school. So I went to boarding school for high school, which I was so fortunate to do. And I was playing lacrosse, I was rowing, I was doing all kinds of sports. Sports has always been really important to me and my family and my friends. It's always been a source of connection. And I was tending to go to these other universities for lacrosse, and then I tore my ACL, which was I hate to be that athlete that's I tore my ACL 5 years ago, yeah. But it's important to the story of how I got here. Yeah. I had no intention of coming to Trinity University in San Antonio until that had happened. It was recommended to me by a family friend, and I was oh, it's a small liberal arts school away from the Midwest, which was a huge priority for me. I wanted to get away from the Midwest. Not that I don't love it, but I wanted something new. Less harsh, less harsh winter. I was looking for something different, and Trinity was definitely far from home and very different. And I decided to come to Trinity really without having seen it at all. I had not been to San Antonio, hadn't seen the school, and I showed up my first day of freshman year here. And I didn't even really know what I wanted to study necessarily. I knew that a liberal arts education would be a good solution to that, as we explore so many different subjects. Mm-hmm. And after my freshman year, I kind of landed on communications because I was really interested in writing and journalism and exploring more modern media texts, not so much classical literature. So that grounded me in communications, and I'm also a minor in creative writing, which has always been, that's something I knew I always wanted. I wanted to major in creative writing, but Trinity doesn't have a creative writing major. So I tied in my minor that way, and creative writing is always something I carry with me to any internship, any job, any opportunity, and it's definitely done a lot to open doors for me. And now I have this great opportunity with Tripod where I get to write somewhat scripts or just kind of guidelines to conversations and get to be creative every day, which has been awesome.
Fantastic. Tell us a little more about, obviously Tripod's your focus right now, but a little more about your goals for this podcast, where you'd like to see it go, what kind of experience you'd like the listeners to have.
Well, I guess what I want for Tripod kind of came out of how it started in a lot of ways, which was very random. It was the end of my junior spring semester, and I was actually at a TU Press event, and I was outside with Bergen Streetman, who is part of the press and has now gone back to do more education at Trinity University, which is awesome. But she was talking to me about an opportunity for a podcast and how I was working for Texas Public Radio at the time. And I was like, well, I kind of know how to do that. I was like, I would love to make a podcast for TU Press. The first challenge was creating a name and what the name was going to be. We were thinking about making it Terra Firma, something related to what TU Press already has, or making it Tinta Podcast, something related to what we already did. But we didn't want to convolute any titles or make anything confusing. And I don't know who threw out Tripod originally. I know we were debating having all these things in it, but I think what comes down to it is we wanted place in there. We knew place-based writing, place-based exploration was important to us. And so place had to be key. And so after Tripod formed, we were like, okay, there's these three things: the people, places, and planet that we can explore. And I think as TU Press is now expanding the focus to be all human-based things, I think having those three pillars is a great way to explore so many different avenues, because now we've opened ourselves up to not only discussing these topics with our authors, who we're so fortunate to have access to, who are either in the community, or we can use, Zoom, whatever we want to use to talk to them about people, place, planet. But we also have community leaders who can come in. We have teachers and educators through Trinity that can come in, and they all fit under those umbrellas: people, place, planet, whether they're speaking of their own experience, their home, or their homes away from home, or environmental impacts. It just opens so many doors. And I think that's a key goal to me, is not being bound to any one topic. I think we should be able to use all these connections we have available to us and make sure everybody gets a chance to listen to those people. But another goal would also be to help define place for others through listening to the podcast, because I think you can I think it's come more and more that you don't necessarily have to be living in one place to feel like you have a place somewhere in this day and age. At least for me, it's I've only been in San Antonio for a few years, but I feel like I have a place here via my friends who've lived here their whole life, or through TU Press, who so many great people have come from other states to be here and work here. And that makes me feel like I have a place outside of my home, which to me would be Chicago. But that's another feeling I want to share with listeners, and that's definitely a main goal that I have, is so people can listen to this podcast and feel like they have a place regardless of what's going on around them and in their day-to-day life that might make you feel disconnected, and to teach people ways to observe their environment and connect with it through our authors who have done just that by doing so much place-based writing.
Trinity University Press is a mission-driven publisher committed to civic engagement with timely ideas facilitated by the publication of print and digital books, related media, creative and educational programs, and other activities that help us all better understand our place in a crowded world. For more than 50 years, Trinity University Press has published more than 225 titles and organized thousands of events, all focus on broadening our understanding of many impactful subjects, from human relationships with our physical environments to social equity and justice. For more information about Trinity University Press, visit tupress.org.
I know I have my goals for this podcast. I guess you have a very different perspective coming from TU Press, and I'm more coming from this idea was just kind of placed into my hands, which I'm very happy about. But I was curious what your goals for it are.
Sure. I'm passionately committed to traditional book publishing. And by traditional, I don't mean print. I just mean traditional book publishing in all forms, regardless of the actual form the media takes. And within that, of course, it doesn't happen without the authors and whatever it is they're sharing with us, and all seen and unseen that goes into making that happen as a polished product. But I've always kind of made the argument that it's just the forgive me for how it sounds, the book's not enough. Books deserve to have that kind of, like I mentioned, a bigger life beyond the page. And that doesn't mean clicheically, turn it into a movie. And that's not what I'm saying. It means having really more deep and engaging conversations with authors. An author standing at a podium reading from a book is fine. We've all seen a lot of that. But there's nothing better than that turns into a real conversation and a deep dive and goes way beyond what's actually in the book. And so to those ends, I view podcast as a way of amplifying the existence of a particular book, an author, and their life's work and story, but even more than amplifying, kind of blowing it up and pointing out that a book is kind of a starting point, not an ending point. That a book should just be something that opens a bigger dialogue, raises even more questions, and prompts you as the reader, listener, to kind of think even more deeply, well beyond just your reading experience and what it maybe brings to you or makes you think about or helps you think about in the world or others in different ways.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it in that way. I mean, I've attended a lot of TU Press events where, authors get to come in and talk to one another and just express all that went into going into their book, which often involves a lot of personal history, but it's a lot you don't get to hear, which I agree. Like, I think Tripod has that opportunity to have people come in and we get to see a whole nother side to their creative process, their connections to their environment and their book, which is such a uniquely personal experience. I sometimes struggle to say that I'm a writer, but I do a lot of writing, and I guess I've been fortunate to take a lot of great classes at Trinity with some authors who work with TU Press, but I think the practice of doing that writing and talking to others about it also does so much to connect you to your place and the people in it. It's just like it brings you to new friends who want to edit your things and read things that you've made, and I think Creative Works do such a good job of introducing us to whole new audiences and projects.
Absolutely, and to your comment, very, very personally, one of my favorite, it's just a personal connection, but one of my favorite authors ever known, but basically not known, author of 14 books, but pretty obscure. We lost him about 10 years ago in his 90s, a long time son of the South, Atlanta, where I'm from, but a long-time resident since 1939, I think, of New York City. His name was Donald Wyndham, and I remember he said to me once that he would, be invited. He had a pretty high stature. He'd, been known in his day for a few decades, and ran with that whole circle of Truman Capote and Tennessee Williams and Harper Lee and all those Southerners in New York in that era. But he was invited because of that stature to speak, and numerous college campuses or other venues, and would often hear people say, like, well, I like to think I'm a writer, or I try to write. And he would always say he had a beautiful way of simplifying everything. And his writing was very sparse, not simple, but very to the point. But he would say, if you write, you're a writer.
I like that.
Period. End of story. Yeah, you don't ever qualify or condition yourself. If you write, you're a writer. Let others figure out if you're a good writer or if they like what you write and, care about that or not. But if you write, you're a writer.
I got to speak to the author of, the book is called The Hero of this book, and her name is, we've both having this experience today, her name is, fleeing me, but she also said along the same lines of, if you're writing, you're a writer, and to not wait to, have to necessarily be published, which, I mean, a convoluted way of tying back to Tripod of just, we're hoping to have such a variety of people on here, those kinds of people who maybe, their accomplishments aren't directly tied to publishing industry necessarily, or even a book, but they've contributed to what we all work with creatively or otherwise. And I'm definitely excited to have a wide variety of people come to the podcast and offer just new insights for everyone to learn from and hopefully connect with.
I love all your comments, and they spark so many thoughts on my part. But in short, I'll add or append that I just think we, through our list and our authors who are all over the world, and such a wide array of editorial interests we have so mmany stories to share that are, I like to use the phrase, kind of life beyond the pages of the book. It works on the pages of a book, but this, it's important to find ways to bring those stories out of the book and bring them to life. And they have so much, interesting, provocative thoughts, questions, ideas, stories to share that I'm just really excited we now have a platform to do that. And, one of the things about place that's important, everybody's got to discover this in their own way, hopefully. But I think, it took me a long time to kind of realize that classic idea that you sometimes have to really learn about another place, someone else's place, and how they live and experience and define that sense of place to kind of rediscover your own place. We become complacent, we become runaways, we become whatever, sometimes celebrants of our sense of place. But, discovering other places, whether you visit there or read about them in the page of the book or hear about it through a podcast or all the above, it helps you rethink about your place and your place in the world in a different way. And that can certainly be an enriching, not a diminishing experience. Yeah, and the tripod thing, I don't know where the name comes from either, but I remember immediately just loving the metaphor of a tripod as a tool to kind of see things, surveying and photography and video camera, but a tripod as a tool to kind of see beyond yourself. And it just immediately resonated as the perfect name. We'll see what listeners think. But yeah, thanks so much for spending some time talking about how we lay the groundwork for this. And here we go.